Hello, hello, hello. Hi, welcome. I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching Good News at Primetime. Tonight, our topic is Finding Me. Finding Me. Because you know, a lot of people don't know who they are, and don't know where they're going and where they came from. Okay, so it's important to know who you are. Okay, we're going to talk about ancestry, the DNA, who you are. Okay, because a lot of people they don't know. They thought they were one person and find out they were somebody else. Okay, they were related to one person, find out they're not related to them. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today. Because it is important, and a lot of people don't want to know who they are, where they came from, because sometimes it may be too painful. But it is important to know for medical reasons, if nothing else, for self-identity. Okay, know who you are, where you came from, and that way you can understand where you're going, who you are about. Okay, you can understand why you like music, or why you're lazy, or why you're alcoholic. All those things, that DNA thing is important. It makes you, whether you know it or not. Because an adopted child can have all the characteristics of his parents, but don't know that because they don't know their parents. Okay, so it's important to know who you are. That's what we're going to talk about. And before we get started with our program, I got to tell you, I have a event coming up June the 3rd. It's a gospel and comedy show. So we got gospel music and comedy, good, clean gospel and comedy music, comedy show. Okay, we all comics, good, clean, none of that raunchy stuff. Okay, we don't have any of that because you know a lot of people want to go to comedy shows, but they don't like being subjected to all the sexual stuff and all the cursing, all of that. They don't want that. So it's sometimes offensive to people to go to something and they have to listen to that all night long. So we're bringing on the clean stuff. Okay. So you got to come out. June the 3rd, 6 o'clock, doors open, 7 o'clock, the show. And the address is 3755 Centerville Highway. That's in Snellville. 3755 Centerville Highway in Snellville. It's at the Connect Points Center. It's a big church. It's a church, but got the event is in the backside. Okay, so that's where it's going to be at. And before we get started, got to bring on my book. My book, Power Thoughts, Empowering You to Be Successful in Life. You got to get that book. It is so powerful. It has enhanced so many people's lives. Um, I was just talking to a lady today who read my book. She was she's a grandmother, as a matter of fact. She's a grandmother. She had low self-esteem, and when she read my book, her self-esteem went up. She went back to school, and today she was telling me that she's going to open up a restaurant. She had already started her own business in food and catering and stuff like that, but now she's getting ready to open up a restaurant. So just from my book and enhancing her life, man, this book has done wonders. One child, a grandmother reported to me that this book has actually saved her child's life. So the book is good. It will enhance your life. You will not regret it. And you can also get it in ebook. I always say the book, but you can get it in ebook as well. So you can just download it and read it whenever you want to on your phone. Everybody got their head in the phone anyway. So download it on your phone and get it. Ebook. You can get it at ankproductions.com. ankproductions.com. Or you can just Google Power Thoughts by Sylvia Hayes. Either way, you can get the book, Power Thoughts by Sylvia Hayes. Okay? So now, before we bring on our guest, I have a little clip that we want to show. Okay? So go ahead and run that clip, please.
Here at Child Support Court, I'm giving to you straight with no chaser. How does it make the non-custodial parent feel when the child says off the cuff, "Mama said that you ain't..." Whoa, wait a minute. Don't talk about the non-custodial parent. So let's get back to child support. That's also mean parental support. Child support too often is relegated, or brought down to money. But ladies and gentlemen, child support is so much more.
Hi, this is Judge Harry Bowden from Child Support Court, the vodcast. Don't you miss one episode streaming Monday through Friday.
Have a good one. This is Judge Bowden for Child Support Court Vodcast.
Okay, that is Judge Harry Bowden. Bowden. I'm going to get that right. Bowden. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bring on our guest so we can get this conversation going.
Sylvia.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on. And yes, you will get it right. It's Harry Bowden, but that's quite all right.
Okay. So we have my co-host, Mr. Reggie Drummer. Hey, Reggie, how you doing?
What's up, family? What's up, Good News family? What's up to all the guests? How y'all doing out there this evening?
We're doing great. How are you?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
So we're going to start off by letting everybody introduce themselves, and then we're going to get on to the conversation. Okay, Judge Bowden, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I am a retired judge, which means that I am saying what I want to say, when I want to say it, how I want to say it. And I'm enjoying myself after 27 years on the bench and about 37 years in the profession. Recently, as of 2013, actually, I started my exit. And one of the interests that I have and that I'm pursuing now is to really take a deep dive and explore, explain, and look at the issue of child support. I firmly believe that the concept needs to be expanded, and we need to rethink, reevaluate, and we actually need to redefine what support means for a human being, getting away from the money and looking at how we as adults and as parents don't want to raise our children, but support them to be the best that they can be. So I'm happy to be here on this program, and this is about my 5th program in 5 days because the subject is so widespread that everybody knows somebody who deals with the issue of child support. And we want to talk about it as a community. We want to talk about it as a society to see what we can do to change the paradigm of how we raise these young people. And I'm glad to be here with you, Sylvia, and your other guests.
Thank you. Sabrina, would you like to tell us a little bit about you?
Well, yes, my name is Sabrina Kirkland, and I am, of course, happy to be here with you. I'm always happy to be on your platform. So I am an author, I'm an orator, I'm an advocate, advocate against human trafficking, teen dating violence, bullying, and advocacy for child safety. Also author of several books, children books, and it's all about giving our children a voice. Recently, a recent YouTuber, just started my own YouTube channel. Also an entrepreneur. So I have several different hats, but my passion, as you know, Miss Sylvia, is our children and our human trafficking. And thank you again for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Desmond, would you like to tell us a little about you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my name is Desmond Jones. By trade, I am a real estate broker. Been doing that capacity for the last almost 15 years or so. I also have a commercial lending firm as well. It kind of augments the real estate side as well. But I also assist Sabrina in the endeavors that she's doing with, the nonprofit, with Sea Life and, advocating against human trafficking. So it's just a joy and a pleasure to be on the show to talk about this topic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to some interesting conversation.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, thank you. So everybody know Reggie, right?
Yes. Hi, Miss Reggie. How you doing, Mr. Reggie?
What's up, family?
Okay. Well, go ahead. You about to say something?
Well, we talk about one of the most interesting topics, especially when we talk about Black people. One of the things when we were doing and still do with Dads on Duty, looking for people that had to pay child support, and then looking at people where they were in situations that they were paying child support for a baby that was not theirs. It's kind of like, what's that show, Maury? You are not the father. So when you start talking about child support, that's a big issue. Also with trafficking, also finding who your brothers and sisters are. I was 29 years old before I found out that I had a sister, and who's about less than 30 days older than my brother and I.
Whoa. Yeah. So it's a lot of that out there. And people don't know. Sometimes people find out at the funeral of a loved one that they got sisters and brothers, out there. So it happens. People, they need to know. Okay, because I know I found relatives, that I didn't know who were relatives of mine. When I went to college, I ran across this girl and she found out where I was from, and then she was telling me about her cousin Louis. I'm going, that's my cousin. No, her cousin, my cousin, and I never knew she existed. No, I found I was the founder of the Mississippi Club, and I was talking to various Mississippians, and this guy was telling me, I told him I was from McGee, and he said he has some family in McGee, and he was beginning to tell me about he has family reunion on Labor Day weekend, and he said we try to go out beat the pains to have more than them, try to have the most people at this family reunion. I said, you lying, that's my family reunion. And he said, no, I'm not lying. That's my family reunion. I said, no, you lying. That's my family reunion. I never even knew the guy. Never knew he existed.
It's interesting because years ago, there was not a requirement that DNA tests be done at the time that a child was born. And now it is mandatory that if a person is alleged to be the father, or if someone claims to be father, they must have a DNA test done. If that were a requirement long time ago, then we would have a little bit more clarity, may have a little bit more clarity about who our brothers and sisters are. Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, it's good that we do. And, it's an interesting subject that you have today, because one of the issues involved in and Mr. Drummer, I don't take the Maury or the what's the other fellow approach where they are just throwing things out and looking at the human emotion about it. But having the reality and understanding of where you come from is important to help your makeup as where you are, as to where you are now and where you're going to go. And it's important. The very start of it comes back to, you really need to know who you are thinking about having a child with. You do. Mm-hmm. And that's a message that I really, really would like to get out to young people, other than the STDs and the other issues of why not to have sex before you're married, but also having this conversation of who are you before we even go there. It's important.
Yeah, it is important, because I have a cousin who left Mississippi, went to Ohio, found a man, married him, brought him back home to introduce him to the family, found out that was her cousin.
Absolutely.
She didn't know her. I had a roommate who went to Chicago to visit her dad. She was there for the summer. And when she got ready to leave to go back home, her boyfriend, she met a guy up there. Her boyfriend went with her to the airport. And guess what her dad told her? That's your brother.
That's right. That's right.
Your brother. She was devastated.
Wow.
it really falls into Miss Kirkland, your industry, I should say, or your work with trafficking is so important. Uh, the understand that there are people who are moved from one place to another. It might as well be the 1800s where slavery existed, and you really just don't know who these people are.
Absolutely. And we call that modern day slavery. And now what we're dealing with right now is that they're snatching our babies literally off the street. Our children can't even walk down the street, going to school, 12, 13 years old, and they literally will jump out of their car, snatch them off the street. We won't see them again. This is a real live issue that we're dealing with today. And as we were talking about knowing who you are, imagine being a part of this type of community with this type of trauma, and then finding out that you are adopted, or finding out, the different things that you got to deal with on top of all of this trauma. And I've seen so many of these cases as we're dealing with our victims. I've heard some stories that will just make your hair stand on end, where the foster parents is the one that's abusing the child, and the child is running away, not knowing, one, that they were a foster child. They thought that was their real parent. Or those that do know that they are foster children because they're taken out of the system and being victimized. And you run the risk of, even being in foster care, separated as siblings, and then to later on find out down the line that you are with one of your siblings that you were separated from when you were a baby. And I just recently saw a post where this older woman, was dating this younger man. And I think they've been dating for maybe a couple of years. She found out it was her son that she had given up for adoption. So yeah, it's to this point now, and I'm in agreement with you, Judge, that we need to, before we get into a relationship with anybody, we need to do a DNA test first. My grandpa, we come from a very large family on my dad's side, so we have this running joke of, who are your people? Where y'all from?
Right. The Southern way.
That's on my mom's side. We have an uncle that has 33 children. Okay, so you need to know who are your people. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a very powerful issue, and it's a very poignant issue in our society today. I just left a kickoff with the district attorney for Fulton County, Fonnie Willis. And she has an extremely strong department for trafficking. Ms. Kirkland, maybe you work with them or have dealt with them, but they are very...
Clark, sir?
No, this is the district attorney for Fulton County, Fonnie Willis.
Okay.
Yes, they have a very, very strong department, and they are addressing it. They are addressing from the standpoint of trying to clean it up, trying to work with it. And we do need everybody collectively.
Yes.
In my issue of child support, that is a culmination of after the child is born. We've talked about several different things before the child is born, what we may do or what we should do. But the child is born, the question is, what can we do? And the first thing from a father standpoint is, one, establish who that child belongs to or who's the father of that child. The state correctly made it law that you have to have that DNA test before you can get child support, because Sylvia, as you shared, there are a lot of times, or I think it was Reginal, there are a lot of times where fathers are presumed to be the father of the child, only to find out that they are not. Now, it's bad in those instances, but guess what? If you are a parent of none, you are a parent of many. The point is that the interest is about the child and how we address that as adults. We know that our foster system is not working the way it should work. But what did work, and it's so interesting, what did work before we got into the I guess the structure, the government structure, it was our community. We really took care of each other. I remember Miss Bright. Well, I don't want to go there. I'm kind of old, but I remember having brothers and sisters who I consider still to this day as my brothers and sisters, and they raised me, and their parents raised me. That's the issue that I'm a little bit really forceful about on how we are interacting with each other and all our children. Sylvia, I have not had a chance to read your book yet, but I would love to hear some of your power thoughts on the issue of what it takes to raise a child, finding out who you are, and the issue of how we can work together to make sure we create the type of society and community we like to see.
Right. Yeah, well, I'll be more than happy to get that book in your hands.
Please do. Please do.
Be more than happy, because you will find it fascinating and want everybody to read it.
There's a question here. Is that a question for the general the general panel?
What is the impact of criminalizing child support
on families and men? I don't necessarily understand. Well, let me address it the way I do understand it. It is the law that if you are the parent of the child, that you provide support. And that support is food, shelter, at the very least. If you do not, the law provides that you have abandoned that child. And that abandonment is a crime. It's a misdemeanor here in Georgia. Now, I think the question is, what is the purpose? It kind of went away.
The impact.
What is the impact? Well, the impact is that it creates the system where you have to go after whomever is deemed to be the parent of the child. Now, the question is why? Why? The government is established to protect, preserve, and to provide for the least of us. And the least consists of children and seniors. Could you imagine a government that would allow a child to go untaken care of? They have some out there, but it's not here. So the impact is, if a parent does not do it, the government steps in, and it's known as a number of programs, widely known or popularly known, TANF, welfare, any type of thing that's going to provide substance to that child. Well, the impact is that the government wants its money back. And they go after the person who's supposed to be responsible, and that is the parent that does not meet that obligation. And be very clear, I am making it gender neutral, because both parents are responsible, whether it be the mother or the father. Unfortunately, too often it's the father that is deemed the one that is not being responsible, and thus the government will go after them.
Yeah, I've known for men to take care of children up until they were grown, just to find out that they weren't the father. And then there are kids who find out that their father are not their fathers. Have you ran across some of those who were devastated because they're not who they thought they were?
From my experience, it depends on the individuals. Because to be honest with you, they don't have to be your blood child or your blood father to show you love.
Right.
If it was somebody who treated you fairly, treated you right, then that, for all practical purposes, that's your father. Right. Or that's your parent. And likewise, can you imagine in the news where we've had these super athletes have all of a sudden disrespected their biological father because they weren't a father to them.
Right. Yeah. And we have a lot of GI babies who don't know who their fathers are. You know? So I've known for people from, I guess, Germany, other countries, they come over here and looking for their fathers because American men went over there and had all these babies, and now they don't have their father, and they want to know who they are.
So they say if you feed them long enough, they'll start looking like it. That used to be the rule of thumb back in the day.
It's true.
But I think a lot of men have stepped up. I was in a stepdad position, and part of that, my son, since he was 3 years old, so I can understand sometimes a biological dad might come by a little later, but in some cases, the women didn't let the men know that they had a child. In the case of my dad, my sister is about 2 weeks older than my brother and I. But one of the things that happened was he did not know that he had a daughter until her mother died. And she was 29 years old and we were 29 years old. So a lot of times, some men just don't know. And then some men do know. And then there are situations where the women put a barrier between, it could be the woman or the man, but most times it's the woman that puts a barrier between the biological dad and the child.
Yeah. And that's sad. That's where we get into the interaction of what the support really means. Because if a parent really knows the true identity, isn't it supporting the child to be whole, to let them know that this is your dad or this is your mom? That's supporting an entity, a human being that has nothing to do with decisions that are made before they're here.
But what I found out that a lot of times, and sadly enough, we have those situations where the relationship was so tumultuous, or the relationship was so bad that the parent now makes the child choose, and that's even more devastating to that child, because you're putting so much pressure on that child to now have to choose whether I want to be with mom or I want to be with dad, when the child says, hey, this was your fight. I want to be with both my parents. Why can't I love you both equally? And so now you have two parents that are fighting unhealthily for the unhealthy love, because love does not do that. The unhealthy love of this child, making this child choose between who you want to be with. And the sad reality of it is the fight is between the mama and the father, not the baby or not the children and the father. So now, not only do you have two people that's hurting, but you got these little people that are hurting as well. And for that, I have to speak that from a personal experience, when I realized, because my ex-husband and I were not getting along, we couldn't even have a conversation with each other without ripping each other apart. Realizing my son was seeing all of this, and it wasn't until one day I realized, he had lined up his toys in his pen and he started going in on his toys. Yeah, 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 and screaming. And so I ran and I was in the kitchen. I ran and I looked down. My baby is in his playpen with his little men lined up, and he's screaming and pointing his fingers at. So I realized, he saw what we were doing to each other. So we had to make a decision. Were we going to raise the child as responsible adults, or were we going to continue to act like adolescents, fight like cats and dogs, and wind up losing our child because we put him in the middle of our fight? And so that happens so much. So now you got to make a decision as a parent and as an adult. Are you in it to hurt this adult using your child as this carrot? Or are you in it for the healthy growth and well-being and development of your child?
And
then
that's
we do is, what I gotta say is, we also have a habit, and us women, we go. I gotta put y'all out there. Women, if you're mad at the daddy, please stop taking it out on the child. If you're mad at the baby is not the daddy. Do not take your anger and frustrations out on your child or out on that child, because that child looks like the daddy. That child didn't lay down with you, the daddy did. Be a parent. Own up to the responsibilities that both of you all made to have a child, even if it wasn't, or it was an accident. You now have this little person that you have to watch. So stop making the child pay for your indiscretions or your accident or your bad breakup relationship. Let me put myself back on mute because I don't know.
Yeah, and that happens also when if a woman get pregnant by a rapist and she have this baby, and she's every time she see that baby, she think about that rapist and mistreat that child, and that's not good either.
No. I've often asked in sharing and talking, do you hate the other person more than you love the child? Now, where the law comes in is that in Georgia, at the age of 13, a child is able to make what's called a preference as to who they would like to live with. At the age of 14, the child is able to make what's called an election. Now, whether it's been through a divorce or it's been through custody, through legitimation, the court will have the authority to place that child and give custody. There are different types of custody. You can have joint custody, you can have sole custody, and you can have custody with somebody being primary and somebody being secondary. And your rights are all defined by the court. And that is a judicial process to keep everything civil. But we don't see it as that way. We see it as one power play over the other. And Ms. Kirkland, as you shared, what you saw in your child's behavior is a direct result. Now, I have a therapist who I'm going to ask to come in on your show, Sylvia, one day, because this is a conversation worthy of having again. And she breaks down very specifically how the actions of the parents affect that child. But when you get down to it, when you say that the parents pit one over the other, that is just wrong. Because what the court does is, first of all, understand that that's what's happening, and the standard that's used to make a decision and determination is the best interest. Now, that's a nebulous little word and term and phrase that goes around, but what does it mean? Who's more stable? Who's able to provide a more stable environment? Who's able to provide more nurturing and developmental position for that child? Now, I'm going to take a point of personal preference and say that men are not trained. We just don't have that natural instinct as a mom. But we do have a natural instinct of protection. And we do have in what I believe, a societal makeup of provision. So we don't mind providing and protecting, but the other part of that, it takes two. I cannot be a female and give those traits that a child will need for life and development, and vice versa. So when the two parents start realizing, hey, forget about us. We did what we did, how we did it. We did not like it. But now let's look at this third person. How do we want them to be? That's when we start breaking it down and saying, let's stop the foolishness. Because the only thing this court's going to do is make a decision that ain't nobody going to be happy with most of the times.
Right. Can I say something? Interject. Just want to interject from a standpoint of the father's viewpoint on child support and everything. As a father of two boys, I have been the butt of the child support courts system, and a lot of times, and this is truth in my situation, a lot of times, when a man is put on child support, it's more like you're guilty until proven innocent, i.e., you're guilty of being a bad father. You're guilty of being labeled as the person that doesn't take care of his responsibility because you were placed on child support. And a lot of times, women sometimes use child support as a tool of control, a tool of manipulation, a tool of, not only are they mad at the father for whatever the situation, the relationship didn't work out, but I'm going to do some get back, so to speak, some personal revenge on the father. And a lot of times child support in some instances can be very restrictive, because if you don't follow the rules of the courts, and even though you are doing what you're supposed to do for the child, if you don't follow the rules of the court, it can be very, very restrictive as far as that goes. So what I'm saying to you is, for instance, what happens is a lot of times, the father may be doing the right thing, but because the mom put him on child support, sometimes he can lose his license, he can't drive, he can't go to work, and how can he be a more productive father to that child because of those restrictions? I'm speaking from personal experiences when I was on child support. So you go through situations, and it took my son to ask his mom and say, Mom, my dad, he sees me all the time. He picks me up all the time. I'm over his house more so than anything. If you allow the court to lock him up, how can he see me? And it became a real aha moment from her. Why was I really putting him on child support? Was it because he was not being there for the child, or was it because she just wanted to exact some kind of form of revenge? And Sabrina, she can attest that, I was there more for my boys than the court. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, from that standpoint, from a man's perspective, sometimes, not all the time, you do have some examples, but sometimes the women use.
What happened?
Yeah, we lost contact with him. But
he's brought up some excellent points. I mean, some really, really excellent points. And I hope he gets back in, because first and foremost, what he's sharing is a problem where people don't understand how the system can work for them. The first thing he said, put on child support. People, gentlemen, men, put yourself on child support, because the purpose of it is the orderly distribution of assets to a child. If you don't want to do that, get with the mother. And we understand that the emotional part about it can be quite damaging. But if you cannot if you, first of all, try to get with the mother, try to get some understanding of how you all will do much better outside of the system. If you can't do that, then you should be the aggressive one to put yourself in the system and control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding the rules of the system and how it works. And they are fair. They are fair. Now, a lot of people say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, the rules apply to everybody. The rules apply to everybody. It is who is applying them that makes the difference.
Right.
Okay?
And I've known for men, I'm gonna give you two examples. One girl, she got pregnant by this guy. First thing he said, "It's not mine." No, she was a virgin when she laid with him. He was the only one, but he said, "It's not my baby," and he didn't do anything for that child. And then I know another guy who was married to this lady, and he had several children by her. He decided he wanted to leave her. And he said before he paid child support, he would quit his job. And that's exactly what he did. He would quit his job so he wouldn't pay child support. And he had several children by him. And then he'd get mad when they take his money. So that was wrong. That's the way he feels. They were wrong when they take his taxes and everything, because he refused to pay child support. And I tell men, if you do halfway right, you won't have to go through that. Because I did not put my children's father on child support because he was there. He sent money. There were times that I stayed at home and watched the kids, and he sent money to pay the bills. So there was no need to, because I felt like I would get more from him not going through child support than I would going through child support. So it depends on the individual too. And if a man don't want to take care of her, if he just out for a good time and she just happened to get caught and pregnant, then what are you gonna do? Just, my bad, leave her? You should have protected yourself.
Well, when you think about it, part of partnership, planning, and preparation, one of the things that, like I think the gentleman said earlier, if you can come up with a plan between you and your partner, once you conceive a child, that puts you in a better position. A lot of times when the government has to become involved, it can create a problem. And what I mean by that is, if they have to force you to do a paid child support, it can be a problem for either party. Well, one of the things in other communities, they might tend to address this up front before you have to have the government involvement. And some guys don't understand their rights and responsibilities, and they try to dodge any involvement when it comes down to paying money. I've had guys that paid more money giving the woman cash and things like that, and they would have had to put less money in if they had been on a regular, some type of payment to the mother. But that was because when they got, and then the woman in the end used that against them as though they never paid anything. They didn't have good records. They didn't keep a good plan together to itemize what they've been paying for child support. So again, we have to have some type of partnership agreement. We got to have a plan, and then we got to prepare and participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mr. Jones, you're back.
Yes, I apologize. I lost my internet connection.
No, you're fine. I wanted to share with you. You just brought up some very, very salient points, and very succinctly. The first thing is that in any arena, okay, you have football, baseball, but in any game, in any arena, you have rules and regulations. The problem is we don't know the rules going in. And you made the comment, put on child support. My comment to you and what I'm saying is that if more men knew that they should be the ones that establish that child support obligation, they should not wait for a mother, okay, to do it. They should do it themselves. Then in doing that, they can control the narrative. You would
Right.
be so surprised how many judges that say, great, I have a man who is being responsible. And now we can really talk about the realities of support. And I really don't want to, I hate child support. You know what I would rather call it, and I do on occasion, and that's child investment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about the investment you make in a total different human being. And the majority of time, what you're doing is you're investing in that child through another person, and that is the giving of the money. Okay. But getting back to what I was saying, if males took more of an initiative and found out the rules of the game, they could understand that sometimes, when you go to that child support guideline, you have what's called deviations. When you keep the child, that could lessen the amount of money that you pay. It's a deviation. When you take those funds and work something out where you're paying, let's say summer clothes, okay? Let's say winter clothes, because baby's gonna need all of that. When you are working with that other individual, then all of a sudden you realize that, dang, it's not that much. And we do what we want to do. Now, let's just be real. Instead of a 6-pack of Similac beer, we buy a 6-pack of Similac. Same thing. We're investing in ourselves through our children. The rules have to be understood. And we have too many preconceived notions about the system. And I hate this expression, they say. They say. Who is they? What does the law say? The law says that a person can petition for child support, but first they got to have a DNA test. Now, Miss Panel, let me just share with you. Babies are business, big business, and it's about property rights. And too many men don't know their rights. They succumb to what they hear and not what they know. One of the most astounding experiences that I've had sitting on the bench, as you call the calendar, custodial parent number 1, the mother stands up. Punitive father number 1, the father stands up, punitive father. Second case, custodial parent number 2 is the same one as 1. Non-custodial parent number 2, the father, is a different man. Okay. Case number 3, custodial parent now, wait a minute, that's the same one as 1, 2, 3, and now we got 4 and 5, and it's 5 different men. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a business.
And can I add to that? Add to that? You're absolutely correct, because what happened in my situation, we had a plan, for child support, and what happened was
she went to get assistance, public assistance, like food stamps and welfare. And one of the questions was, in order for us to help you, to give you this public assistance, you have to put the child support you have to, child support agreement is one thing. Then there's another part of it called enforcement.
There you go.
Right. So in order for her to get the welfare assistance, she was required to
give up her rights.
Exactly.
For
Right. So that's one
right.
thing that a lot of people don't understand. When you go to the government and you allow the government to assist you, they do other things as well. And a lot of men fall in that situation because, sometimes men do have plans. They do have a workaround the system, but when they go to ask for welfare, WIC, or whatever, the system that's what happened in my situation. She was forced to file child support. And but she wasn't too opposing of it though.
No,
so sometimes using it as a tool, but so a lot of times it's the system forces that situation, and then like you said, it took me a while to really learn my rights.
There you go.
Yeah, it took me a while to learn my rights because a lot of times, you kind of think that, oh man, this is happening. I just got to succumb to the system, not realizing that you have rights as a man, you have rights as a father, you have rights to fight.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm off child support because of the different things that I fought between me, my son, and just coming to a meeting of the minds that this was the best interest for everybody. And since I've been off child support, it's been way better.
There you go.
For me, my boys, Sabrina, she can attest, it's been way better for them. I've been able to provide even more for them, spend more time, provide more resources, more insight into their lives, and be able to not just better myself financially, but their lives as well. And a lot of times, like I said, there are some bad apples, but there are a lot of fathers who are good fathers. There are a lot of fathers who want to be there for their kids, who want to have that positive relationship with their kids, but sometimes their child support system kind of restricts that. It kind of binds them. It binds the good with the bad. Like I said, there are some bad apples who, the system needs to enforce, but I believe there are also good people, good fathers who are wanting to be a part of it. Like me, I really want to be a part of it. I am in my son's life, even today.
And I believe there are more fathers that are like that are not. They're scared. It's just like someone described this DNA about police. When you're driving and you see those blue lights, all of a sudden you get flashes of everything going on because there's an authority. Well, take that same sort of thing and put it in the arena of court, child support court. You get those flashes, you don't know what's going on, and you don't ask, which is the major problem. You don't ask. Mr. Jones, you talked about rights. You have to have rights. You have to know your rights, first of all. Mm-hmm. Then you have to enforce your rights. Sylvia, Sabrina, Reginal, we've had too many people who have died, fought, struggled. So we have rights on a larger scale, but this is an issue individual. And if you don't zone in and say, wait a minute, hold on, let me understand this, then the system cannot, in fairness to everybody, because it doesn't know what your particular situation is. You have to be an advocate.
I have a question. So if a woman have a couple of kids by this man, they separate, they go their own ways, he's paying child support. Now she finds somebody else and marry him. Does the father still have to pay child support?
Absolutely. Yes. The first of all is, were they married? How was the separation? Was it through a divorce or just a separation? Were they ever married? If they were married and broke up, there was presumably a divorce. that divorce outlines the obligations of both parents, including the obligation to continue to pay support. Now, that does not mean that the father cannot ask for a modification, which is a change in the support because of a change of circumstances. That's a right that they have. But is it automatic that they stop? No.
It can go even so far as the child can be a grown full adult and you still have to pay child support. The
Well,
child
you pay back child
back
support,
child support, right? Back child support. Child can
arrearage.
be full arrearage, right? The child can be dead, and if you owe, you owe. So, and I have some friends who are experiencing that situation, family right now, and it's just not knowing your rights. Like so, what you said, Judge, that's very important. I didn't know my rights when I first, and I thought I was very smart, but I just, and a lot of it, like you said, is fear of the court system, fear of just going in there in the system, and I mean the way it's set up it's more on favor of the maternal mother versus for the father in a lot of instances. A lot of men think that they're going to go into the court system and the judge is going to be so sympathetic to the mother and they're not going to hear anything that the father is saying. That's what I thought. And
Well,
what I
see, and that's it. That's the
Yeah,
misconception that a lot
exactly.
of people have. Yeah, and it could be just the opposite.
Right.
If you're the aggressor that goes in and says, "I want to do this," judges are saying, "Yes, we're ready to hear you," and it's all about still the best interest of the child.
Exactly.
It really is.
Okay, so I have another question. Okay, they're separated. He's paying child support, but what about the support of his father's people? Just visitation and stuff like that. Do the child have any rights to see their grandparents and uncles and cousins and stuff like that? Because a lot of time when men and women go their separate ways, they leave all of that family behind, even though they have the children. So is there anything in there anywhere where they're supposed to see the family members, or they just go their own separate ways?
No, those are 2 or 3 questions that you asked there. Now, the ability for a child and visitation to be executed by a non-custodial parent is outlined in the court order. The court takes very specific pains to break down times, places, dates, years, everything for that visitation to occur. Now, if that's not done, then again, we have the issue of, is it based upon a court order? If the child was not born within wedlock, then that child is illegitimate. And the child has to be legitimated for the father to establish those rights. And it's just a process. But once the process is done and legitimation of that child is completed, those rights are all lined out. So a parent cannot say, "Oh, you can't see them today. You can't see them today." Then they will be in trouble. Okay? So is it possible that they can see their cousins? Yes, but they have to establish that through a court order if they do not have one.
Okay. And what is the process for legitimization if they were born illegitimate?
It's the
outside the wedlock?
filing the paperwork.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. You can go to a company called getmybabymoney.com. And it is a company that assists you. Now, this is amazing, but it's true. Okay. Anybody can go and do this. All right. But the reality is that the application for both child support and legitimation is a minimum of about 19 pages. Your circumstances of 35. And that hampers us from doing that. But there's a company called getmybabymoney.com that you can call, and I think they're like $75 for their processors to process it, $25 that you pay to the state. You pay them the $100. They process your paperwork over the phone. They have interviews with you, set it up, process your paperwork, open up that case with the state, and then the state picks it up and you take it from there.
Okay, so it would is that any different from just going to the birth certificate place and say I want to put my name on the birth certificate? Would that be any different? Or is
that putting your name on the birth certificate is nice, but it don't mean nothing to establish rights. If an officer comes, if you go to see your child and you say, I got my name on the birth certificate, that officer's going to say, that's nice, but you don't have a court order to establish your rights. Having your name on a birth certificate is presumptive, but it's not a legal authority to establish your rights. So that's another myth. Having your name on a birth certificate don't mean squat.
So that don't obligate you to having to pay child support, taking care of that kid if you sign that birth certificate?
No. What obligates you to pay child support is when an authority contacts you and says you need to pay child support. If the authority never contacts you, then you're not going to be enforced. You're not going to be forced to make those payments. And there are a lot of moms who make the decision, I don't want you to have anything to do with me or my child. And that's wrong, because you cannot forgive the obligation to pay child support for the child. That is the child's right to receive the support, not yours. And what a mother's doing is cutting off that child's right, and you can't do that. That's not legal.
So if this man was an abusive person and the woman wants to get away with her and her child, get away from him, wouldn't that I don't know, wouldn't that suffice for him not paying child support, or her not forcing it? Because if she forced him to pay child support, wouldn't he have the right to go see the child and maybe abuse her some more, maybe abuse the child?
No, let me break this down. That is something totally okay. The abusive nature of a relationship is a criminal matter. That's a crime when it gets into any type of physical issues for which you go to jail for not paying child support, but you go for jail for breaking the law of a criminal nature. The issue of child support is domestic.
Okay.
Hear what I'm saying? That's domestic.
Yeah.
Now, if you have abusive relationships, we want to be perfectly clear. Nobody should put themselves or their child in danger. Period. But one of the things that Susan does, or Sandra does, Ms. Kirkland does, is she works with authorities to protect those individuals. And I'm sure she's aware of that there are systems in place that when an individual has a domestic or violent issue, then that goes off into another whole direction. Does it give, just because a person presumes, assumes, or is even tested to say that they are the father, does it give them a right to visit the child? No.
Okay.
And we've had a case where a victim was in hiding because she was in a domestic violence relationship and they did have children. Yes, the father did have to pay child support. He did not have any rights. He did not know where they were. What they did was they gave her a card, like a prepaid card or something like that, and he had to pay the money to the state, and then the state put the money on the card for her, same way as child support. But that did not stop him, even though he couldn't see his children, he still had to pay child support. So that does not stop there. And she does not have to see them because they were in another state, of course, because of the volatile relationship. But there are ways to protect them from that. But that does not, stop him from having to take care of his parental duties, which is paying child support or helping to support the child or take care of that child.
So I have another question. If a person don't find out who their father was until they're an adult, do that father owe them any child support? Didn't pay anything from birth until they became an adult. Do they owe him anything?
Child support, the obligation for child support does not start until paternity is established.
Okay, when they find out the adult, 20, 30, 40 years old, when they find out that was their father, through blood work. So do that man owe him anything all these years that he did not pay child support?
Unfortunately, no.
It stopped at 18?
Doesn't even start until it's established.
Oh, okay.
See, that's where you have a double obligation. If a mother goes and applies for child support and names the presumed father, they have to cooperate in order for the state to have enforcement rights. That's what Mr. Jones was talking about. I've had instances, in fact, this company that I mentioned, getmybabymoney.com, I've had men or heard stories where men have gone there, signed up because a mother refused to go forward with the DNA test, but wanted to just continue getting them on a psychological basis to pay me money, pay me money, pay me money. Well, the men went there and said, wait a minute, I'm going to do this the right way. Signed up for it. The state will then contact that mother and say, this person has filed to put themselves on child support. You now have to cooperate with a DNA test. And I know of 3 instances where the mother knew that was not the father, refused to cooperate, and this person was deemed not the father for any other purposes. They didn't have to pay 1 dime and they stopped paying the mother. In addition to that, the state started reducing and taking away the benefits from the mother because she refused to identify a proper person who was the father.
So what about cases of incest? Do the incest person still have to pay child support?
Absolutely.
Just a father, period.
Absolutely. It goes back to what Ms. Kirkland was saying, that the state provides for those types of situations for the protection of both the mother and the child, but it does not alleviate the obligation to pay child support for that child.
We definitely got to do a part 2 on this. You guys have definitely put some things out that a lot of men and women need to know.
Yeah. So I got another question. we have these little boys out there getting babies, 16, 17 years old. Are they obligated at that point to pay child support, or when they become 18 and 19, 21?
At the time paternity is established, the obligation to pay child support is fixed.
Okay.
So yes.
16-year-old got to pay child support.
16-year-old got a baby.
Yeah.
He doing grown-up stuff, so he have grown-up responsibilities. Absolutely.
And let's be very, very specific. Child support obligations are on both parties, the mother and the father. Both have to pay.
Okay. You went out on my end. Can you repeat what you just said?
I said let's be very specific about it. The obligation to pay child support is on both parties. Both parties have that obligation to pay. It's not just the mother or it's not just the father, it's both of them. There's a joint obligation that both of them pay for the care, maintenance, upbringing of their child.
Oh, okay. Okay. So if the mother decides to give that child up for adoption, what obligation do the father have at that point? None. Would that be cut off if the mother gave the child up for adoption?
Well, an adoptive, a mother choosing to have the child up for adoption does not cut off the father's rights unless the father, first of all, has cut off his own rights, has not established those rights. So in other words, again, if you have a father that is a punitive father, that is a father of a illegitimate child, they have no rights, only obligations. Only the obligations. Okay? If a mother decides to relinquish her parental rights, that father has to be a part of the adoption process, be given.
Okay, we are frozen.
Oh,
Y'all still alive?
Yeah, he froze up.
I can add some insight. I guess what he was saying is if the father also gives up his parental rights, then he would not be obligated to pay child support. But so long as he maintains his parental rights as a child, and maybe he still would have to pay child support. I read up on it and trying to know my laws when I was trying to figure out certain things. So again, I'm not a lawyer. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good enough. So I know we were supposed to be talking about the long lost children, but we have ran out of time. We have ran out of time. This has been very informative. Thank you guys for sharing your insight. I'm sure somebody have gotten something out of this, especially those who's going through it. So I really appreciate it. All the conversation that you have added to it. Do anyone you want to give a last minute how you can be reached in case someone have any questions or anything like that? If you have any upcoming events or something.
I'd like to share, if there are any of your listeners who'd like to be a part of Child Support Court Vodcast, which is streamed Monday through Friday on YouTube, you could actually join a show that I have, Ask Judge Harry. You can go to childsupportcourttv.com, and there is a form for a guest that you can fill out. You can submit your questions, and someone from the Ask Judge Harry will get back with you and schedule for your attending. I normally answer questions on Tuesday from 9 to 11. Once we get that going, but you can sign up for Ask Judge Harry at childsupportcourttv.com. You can go to YouTube and go to at Child Support Court TV, and you can catch episodes where I give the law, I give specific issues and facts that you can consider. And lastly, you can go, well, not lastly, I'm all across Instagram, Facebook, and you can go there and look me up, Judge Harry Bowden, Child Support Court Vodcast. And let's remember to broaden the meaning of child support. It should be child investment, where we start learning to work with the other person for the best interest of the child. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina, would you like to tell us how you can be reached, or any events, anything you got coming up?
Oh, absolutely. So if you are interested, or we provide trainings for churches, for schools, for businesses, corporations. If you're interested in training for human trafficking, or if you're a school, church, and you want to have a training for teen dating violence, bullying, or child safety, reach out to us on info@seedlifefoundation.org. That's info@seedlifefoundation.org. We will also be out in the community this week on Saturday for our community day. We're partnered with Harbin House to spend time with our homeless individuals, and that's going to be this Saturday at 2805 Metropolitan Parkway Southwest in Atlanta. We also have another event coming up on the next Wednesday, where we'll be out with our Seed Life Foundation, which is Light the Torch, and another event with providing snack packs and food, and also clothing and so forth with our homeless community. So we're out and about in community. So if you want to know what we're doing, visit our website at www.seedlifefoundation.org, or you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at seedlifefoundation.org, or Sabrina Rietti Kirkland on any of our podcasts, or I'm sorry, what did I say, podcast? Any of our social media outlets. And thank you.
Okay. Desmond, would you like to say anything? You have anything coming up, or would like to tell where you can be, how you can be reached?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I can be reached through the same contacts with Sabrina, but personally, if you have any, I like to say, even though I sell real estate, but I also give free real estate advice. So if anybody have any questions about, purchasing real estate, or even getting into, that arena as far as investing and, just going to the next level financially as it pertains to, real estate, financial literacy, anything, you can reach out to me. My cell phone, 770-256-6979, or you can go to Instagram, which is Landmark Realty LLC, or you can send an email to DesmondJJones@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Reggie, in the last minutes, last words.
Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and share this with your family, friends, and loved ones. And thanks, everybody. Great information. And we'll be ready for part 2, because we got to continue this conversation.
Okay, will do. Okay, I would like to thank everybody for participating tonight. This is a very informative conversation, and I'm sure somebody has gotten something out of it. And I just want you to remember that child support is not just paying money. It's being there for those kids when they're playing ball. John would love for dad to be there to see him make that touchdown. Okay, Karen would love for you to see her being a cheerleader and out on the floor doing her thing, coming home with these good grades and being having a dad to say, look, Dad, I made all A's. That is support right there, to know that you can go to your dad when you're feeling blue. Or even sometimes we have absent moms, okay? Those moms need to be there in those children's lives. The fathers need to be there in the children's lives. It's not all about money. It's supporting them, the welfare, because a lot of kids do things because they feel like they're not loved. So you got to let those kids know that you are loved. You might not put a penny in their pocket, but let them know that you are loved. But then if you love them, you're going to put a penny in their pocket, okay? So love your children, support them in all the things they do, their activities, spend time with them. It's the quality of time, not the quantity of time that matters, the quality. If you spend time with your child, talking to them, eating ice cream, that is better than being in the room with them and you watching TV and they doing something else. That is much better, just having that time together, okay? Child support, they're supporting them mentally, okay? And it is so important. So support your children, all children. If you know some other child that needs support, support them too, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be financially. Take them to the ball game. Show them something, go shopping with them. Do something, okay? So it is important. Going to the fair or something like that. And don't forget my book, Power Thoughts, Empowering You to Be Successful in Life. You want to get that book, go to ankproductions.com and get that book or the ebook, or you could just Google Power Thoughts by Sylvia Hayes. And don't forget, June the 3rd, we're going to be at the Connect Point Center in Snellville, okay? 3755 Centerville Highway. You're going to enjoy yourself. We got a lot of good comedians who's going to be making you laugh your butt off. And then we got the good gospel music who's going to be lifting your spirits. So you're going to leave out of that place feeling good. We got a little few snacks too. So you won't be totally hungry when you come there or when you leave out, okay? So until then, learn who you are, support all those people who need support. To see you next week.